We're just waiting for one other person from Turn2Us to join, but I'm going to start if that's okay. We can come to Dave later. So good afternoon, I'm Richard Ayres. I'm the Social Care Advisor here at Care England, and I want to welcome you to our joint Turn2Us and Care England webinar, which is asking the question, are your staff struggling to make ends meet? I think the recent budget announcement and the changes announced in the 2024 autumn budget by our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will significantly impact care providers' ability to pay beyond the national living wage. Given the increased cost in employers' national insurance that were announced at the same time and the change in the threshold. We calculate beyond what local government has been afforded in the budget settlement, this creates about a £1.3 billion funding gap for care providers to bear. We know this is going to force some care providers out of business, and some will struggle as they try to find the 8 to 10% additional income they need to sustain their organisations. So related to this, today we're introducing a solution which is aimed at supporting our most valuable asset, our staff. And I'm proud to be joined by colleagues from Turn2Us, who are a national charity providing practical help and support to people who are struggling financially. So I will shortly be introducing Katie Palmer, a strategic partnership manager, Dave Sampson, who will join us shortly. Oh, Dave's now joined the call, thank you. He's a product owner of the Benefit Calculator, and Christelle Tamby, who is the Grant Search product owner. They'll each introduce themselves when they start to speak, and they'll take you through how you can tap into the £22.7 billion in unclaimed benefits and support that your care staff are entitled to. And what we know is about 70% of care workers who work through the Turn2Us solution generate on average £568 in additional benefits and support that they were unaware they were entitled to. So Katie will shortly start us off and will introduce her colleagues. We are very happy to take questions after both Dave and Christelle have spoken. So you are free to use the chat facility, or you can raise your hand and we'll come to the questions after they finish speaking, after their presentations. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So if you would prefer to ask a question privately, please drop me an email and I will ask that question anonymously on your behalf. I'll put my email address into the chat shortly. In fact, I'll do that now quickly. So you've got it. So you can ask me a question and I'll pick that up via email and ask it on your behalf. I will ask you to keep yourselves on mute whilst the panel are presenting, and after that we will open up the microphones and you can ask your questions directly to the panel. After Dave and Christelle speaking, we can take further questions. We are recording the session and our intention is, as always, to note any questions down, produce an FAQ if necessary afterwards, and provide a copy of the recording and any questions along with contact details from our speakers today to you should you have any further questions to ask. So without further ado, I will hand over to Katie.
Thank you, Richard. So it's really fantastic to see some of you here today, and very shortly I'll tell you a bit about Turn2Us. Before I do, we're going to kick off with a question. We're not going to do a fancy poll, but we put this question in the chat. How many of your staff at your various care homes or care providers that you work with do you think have no savings? And we'd love everyone. I know you've got some of you have got your videos off, but just to spend a bit of time thinking about this. There's no right or wrong answer, so please do take a guess. So it's 20%, 40% or 30%, and we will say a bit about the national average and the average for the sector in a moment. Oh, the answers are coming in. We appreciate that you'd never know this without kind of surveying staff, but it's interesting to get your perspective. So Catherine's saying 40%, Olivia 30, 40. Oh, I think we're somewhere around 40. I'm wondering how many people have read the Care England and Wagestream report, which has the correct answer for the sector, and particularly those that were surveyed, but I'll just give it another minute. Richard, have you guessed? I'm testing whether or not you've read the report. You're on mute.
I can't remember them, but I'm going to say it's low. I'm going to go low. I'm going to go at 20%.
It's actually, so for those of you that said 40%, you'd be closer. So the average for the sector based on a recent report with Wagestream is 30%. 37%. So 37% of staff that were surveyed in the sector in which you all work have no savings. And that is quite high. I can say a bit more about the national average later, but we know that in this sector, people tend to have lower savings than they do in other sectors. Nationally representative data from the Money and Pension Service suggests that it's actually 17% of households that have no savings. So it's higher in this sector than it is in other households. And as Richard pointed out, that's partly due to salary, background, all sorts of sort of structural barriers. So, and that's the context in which Turn2Us likes to work. I'm going to share my screen and say a bit more about who we are. So we are just bear with me. Can you all see this? Yes, you should be able to. So Turn2Us are a national charity. We provide practical help to people who are struggling financially, particularly people who might be working in frontline roles, people on very kind of lumpy incomes. They might be on 0-hour contracts. They might not be working at all. People from disadvantaged backgrounds, vulnerable communities, lower socioeconomic groups. And we're here today to talk about how our tools and services can support your staff, particularly those who might be in that 37% and might have zero savings. So we're really here to, apologies, I've got delivery. We are here to work in partnership with you, and we would love to hear from you at the end about kind of whether you'd be interested in perhaps embedding some of our tools on your website. So just going to click along. We are led by people experiencing financial insecurity. We work in partnership with other organisations and communities, and the main information and support we offer is through this suite of digital tools, which we're going to talk about today. So you can see here the results page from our calculator. Dave's going to talk you through that today. But these are our tools that the charity offers. They are all free to use for the public. Lots of similar things exist which you kind of have to pay for or share lots of data for. These are free, and not only that, the data that your staff will put in when they use these tools is all anonymised. It's not shared with the DWP. So we take privacy really quite seriously. And the way that we work is we co-produce everything we do. So people with lived experience of financial insecurity have informed these tools and helped us get them to where they are today, which is in a place where we're the kind of sector leading charity for income maximisation tools. So today I am going to start by saying a little bit more about our partnerships and then hand you over to Dave and Christelle. So I get the lucky job of partnering with all of these fantastic frontline grassroots organisations. As you can see, they're Citizens Advice. You all know they're a brilliant partner of ours. Also some housing associations, 13, Gingerbread, who support single families, a whole range of kind of advice and information organisations that support people, whether it's long-term health conditions, whether it's with financial advice and support. Our tools can really plug in to help their users and audiences get the benefits and the grants and the kind of information that they deserve. So today we're going to talk about the benefits calculator and the grant search, and then we'll kind of switch between Dave and Christelle. So we're actually going to start with benefits calculator. I'm going to hand over to Dave now, and he's going to talk you through a demo. Is that right, Dave? Have you got access? I will stop sharing.
I'm going to share my screen with everybody.
Thank you.
Let's have a look at this. Can everybody see my screen? Great, thank you. So I thought it'd be useful just to do one kind of relevant case scenario to kind of bring the calculator to life and to show how it could be useful in your work. So this is a case study of Linda. She's a single parent from Birmingham with twins, one girl and one boy, aged 2. She lives in private rented accommodation and pays rent of £180 a week. She currently works a 15-hour shift in a care home, earning £179.10 a week, and gets free childcare through the government's free childcare offer. She wants to know what her entitlements would be if she increased her hours. Say she did an extra shift and she did 23 hours a week, earning £274.62 per week, with childcare costs of £112 per week. So would she be worse off or would she be better off? That is the question she wants to know. So I plugged that through the calculator, and here are the results. I'm not going to demo the entire calculator unless anybody wants me to demo the entire thing, but it's very easy to use, and you put in the answers, you put in the kind of answer to the questions, and I've put in her details, that she's a single parent and she's got 2 children and the ages of the children, and how much she's earning now and how much she expects to earn from the new, if she decides to increase her hours. So if she works 23 hours, we calculated that she would, for £274.62 per week, her household would have a total income of £720.16 per week in the universal credit system. So we have a look at the 2 scenarios side by side. So we see here with the total benefits, what she's getting at the moment is £391.61 per week, and her total income is £570.71 per week through her current situation. And you see in this case, actually, her benefits do actually increase, oddly. And I think that's because of childcare costs, I suspect, because although she can't get her whole childcare met through free childcare because she's working more than the 15 hours because of her children too, she could get help through universal credit with her childcare costs. Plus also the income is increases as well. So that includes her earnings. You'll also find in some of these comparisons that sometimes the benefits actually go down, but the overall income can increase.
David,
So
I just had a question, if that's all
yeah.
right. In
Yeah,
that
sure.
instance, sorry, I'm Olivia from Elizabeth Finn Homes. In
Oh,
that
hi.
instance, if she chooses to take on a couple of extra shifts, this month, but she
Yes.
doesn't want to commit to doing that every week or every month, what's the impact on benefits? I think the fear that a lot of people have is that if they change anything, they could find themselves either unknowingly misleading the system or setting themselves up to lose out in the future when they maybe don't have the option of additional shifts.
Okay. Well, in terms of the way in terms of universal credit, unfortunately, the rules vary according to which benefit we're talking about. But with universal credit, you get paid. Basically, it's assessed every month. So they assess your kind of benefit, your universal credit entitlement based on your earnings that month. So if you increase your earnings for that month, it will calculate your entitlement for that month. And then if it went down, it would calculate it for the following month when your earnings went down. And it uses what's called real-time earnings, so which is through the HMRC, which is based on the kind of tax, the PAYE system. So,
okay, brilliant. That's really helpful. So it's actually quite
although the
flexible.
responsibility, like with all benefits, rests with the claimant to notify of changes of circumstance. Universal credit, I'm not going to lie to you, is not a very easy system to navigate because there's an assumption that basically everybody gets paid monthly and on the same day of the week. But if you get, situations where people get paid weekly or fortnightly, then it can be quite difficult for people to know what they're getting from month to month, because you can get some months where you got more pay just because of your work cycle, where the days your earnings are paid. So basically, it's not an easy system in that sense, but it is supposed to be a dynamic system, which is supposed to take into account these fluctuations in earnings. But because of the fluctuations, that's the positive side of it. But unlike the old benefit system, you won't get the same amount every month, because it assesses your income every month, basically.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, David.
Yeah. So shows here on the calculator, it will also point up other income, such as earnings and pensions, if people got pensions, and then it sums the total income. So the new entitlement, if you were to shift to 23 hours, would increase in this particular case. And what I would stress is that there's no, this is not a template for every single case. It's important that people do a benefit check to check how it affects them, because the benefit system is means tested and is dependent on your circumstances. We also do so basically that's to showcase one of the things the calculator can do, which has got an in-work reckoner, so it can compare those in-work changes of scenario with hours and increases to income. With universal credit, we show a breakdown of how their universal credit is broken down, and so you can see there the help with childcare costs in the new one, as opposed to new scenario as opposed to the old scenario. You can see how earnings affects how much earnings are taken into account, and crucially, you can see how housing, how we've calculated the housing element, because with universal credit, it's all paid in one payment, so there's not a separate housing benefit system for most claimants. And we also have an extra feature where, in addition to benefits, people can actually find out what other helps they might be able to get. So, for instance, help with bills. We got like broadband social tariffs, for example, if people were wanting to save money on their broadband. Help with their water bills. It gives them information about links to the water schemes. So it's things like that, extra things we're doing now in addition to the benefits. So I think I'll leave it there for now, and then people can ask me questions, and then I can talk a bit more.
That's great, David. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And I think, Olivia sort of jumped in on that point as well. I think, the government strategy is to try and make work pay. And in this situation, and I know it can be different for various different situations, which is why it's important people check the calculator. But in this situation, Linda's £151 better off for taking up that 8-hour shift, which equates to a pay of about £18 per hour, which is more than she's actually being paid. Probably would be probably closer to the minimum wage, £11.44 per hour. So in this situation, it's actually making work pay, and it's covering the costs of childcare and what have you. So I think it's a fantastic example of how, if we can help our care providers to understand this model, and they can use this model, it's on their system, they can sit down with their staff to talk about what happens when they're taking up an extra shift, because there is a real myth out there where people say, well, I can't work more than 16 hours because otherwise I'm going to lose money. Well, actually what we're proving here is in some situations you're not necessarily going to lose money. Katie, did you want to come in on that point?
No, I think not on that point. You've illustrated it beautifully. I was going to ask about extra help. So if Linda is interested in help with like healthcare or vouchers, or here we go. Extra help available. It'd be great to see a bit more on that.
Yes, so I demonstrated earlier help with bills, like with the broadband, as an example, but there's help with health costs. So it tells people about that they should check whether they can get any help with their prescriptions, dental charges. For some people, it is fairly straightforward. They are entitled to free help, but for some people, they will have to go onto the NHS website to check.
Fantastic, thank you. You've got white goods on there as well.
Yeah.
Bereavement. So obviously, if you
Yeah.
are sadly bereaved, then there's help with funeral
Yeah.
costs and what have you. I understand as well.
Yeah. So this is kind of a fluid thing. We're adding to these all the time. So
Okay.
yeah.
And if Linda wanted advice, there's a get advice box there. If she's got all this
Yes.
information but still wants to speak to someone.
Yes. So we have a find an advisor tool which we link to, which is on our website. So basically, it's a search where you put in your postcode. So if you want benefits advice, you put in welfare benefits and the postcode, and it tells you where your nearest advice agencies are.
And from your perspective, this tool is accessible to everybody. It's confidential. Their information is not retained or stored anywhere. So we always advise that we encourage all of our care workers to look at this and to play around with some scenarios to see what would happen if they did want to increase their shifts or take on some extra hours and what have you, because they can really see what the impact would be on them financially.
Yeah, I'll just quickly show you before I finish. So within the body of the calculator, I'm demonstrating the public version of the calculator. So we have this neat little question here, which asks this particular question. Are you using the calculator today to check how your benefits would be affected if you change your hours or earnings? If you answer yes to that question, you first of all enter your current scenario, and then after you've entered your current situation, then it asks you about the situation you're interested in, so that you can run that side-by-side comparison.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, David. Do we have any other questions from those on the call? If not, we can move on to Christelle. We can come back to questions afterwards. I think on that point, Christelle, let's thank you very much, David. You're staying with us, aren't you? So there might be some more questions.
Yeah, okay, you're welcome. Yeah.
And Christelle, over to you.
Hello, everyone. So we're going to share Angela's story now. Katie, can I just take over the screen?
Yes, you should just be able to automatically share.
I think it's this one, actually. Yeah, so let me know if you can see my screen.
It's coming up now.
I can, it's just loading. There she is. There's Angela.
Yes, so Angela, obviously, is a 43-year-old woman living in Hammersmith. She moved to the UK 20 years ago from Germany to join her husband. Since being in the UK, obviously she came at the age of 23. She'd worked various jobs, hotel jobs. She's been a waitress at various restaurants, worked in coffee shops, Sainsbury's for a few years, and then she had her twins. And after the birth of her babies, she had to stay home for a while. But for the past 5 years, she'd been working night shifts at a care home, as this fits in well with her home life. Her husband, David, 48 years old, works in construction and has had an accident. This accident has left him unable to work for a while. Angela has now become the main breadwinner of the house, but her resources can only stretch so far. And with no savings, she's worried about the upcoming winter months. She envisages a situation where she might soon be having to choose between keeping the heating on or feeding and clothing her family. She really needs assistance, and just for our own consciences, we'll just take it that Angela and her family are already in receipt of all the benefits that they're entitled to. But again, that money doesn't stretch so far. So we will do a grant search for Angela. Can you see that I've switched screens? Okay. So grant search is more straightforward than the benefits calculator. So click next. Angela is 43, and we do ask for age because you can get grants based on how old you are. They're always categorized. And she lives in Hammersmith, W6 7NL. Again, you can get grants based on the areas that you live in, hence why we're asking for this information. And then your occupation. It's very important that you obviously tell your care workers this, because when a person's in need, they're very one-track minded. It's very easy to think about yourself as you are now. I'm Christelle. I work at Turn2Us. I work for a charity. I need help, and I need help with a fridge. But that's not how the grant search works. It interrogates your past your history, that of your husband, that of your family, your parents. So if your parents work in armed forces before, your husband's health, because they said he's out of work. We don't know if he's ill or anything else. So let's do Angela's history. She works in a couple of places. So there's definitely retail, right? There was definitely hospitality, caring, hospitality, yeah, fashion. We could put it in fashion and textiles. I mean, Sainsbury's have shops, so we'll leave it at this. Next, we don't know if she has a disability or anyone has, but obviously her husband's out of work. We don't know if he's ill or anything. We don't have that information. We don't know what religion she identifies with, so we won't put that information in, but that's something you can obviously ask. We don't know if well, he hasn't told us if she needs help with electricity or water, so we'll skip those bits. And then it takes us to the results page. 37 grants for Angela. So grants like Hospitality Action provide grants for people who currently work or have worked in the hospitality industry for 7 or more years in their lifetime. If Angela had worked in the hospitality industry for 7 or more years, she'd be eligible for this. So it gives you the information, tells you who is eligible, obviously, what they can and cannot assist with. It tells you how to apply. So once you answer this question, if this is a yes, it will give you the details of how to apply, take you straight to the website. Again, fashion and textiles. They provide grants for children age 18, for children whose parents or carers had previously worked in a UK fashion or textile company. And it tells us down here that the trust criteria covers workers from fashion or textile companies such as clothes shops, fashion or textile manufacturers, distribution centres, laundries and supermarkets like Asda, Tesco's, Sainsbury's. So again, Angela might be lucky to get a grant. Again, there's boots. Again, there's licensed trade, and this is for people who have 5 or more continuous employment in licensed drinks, pub trade, so pub, bars, nightclubs, distilleries, breweries, industry. So again, if Angela can answer that question, grocery aid, again, she'd worked in supermarkets, so she will be eligible. And I'll just go to the last page and show you something. So, I mean, there's a lot. There's all weird and wonderful things here. A lot of grants, a lot of charities out there that have money to give out. So please, please do go through them. I cannot go through them all as we have limited time now, but I just wanted to show you something on the last page, if I can get there. So remember I mentioned that Angela was German, right?
Yeah.
And that's because there's the German Welfare Council that offers one-off grants and convalescent and holiday breaks to German nationals and their descendants who live in Great Britain and need financial assistance. So obviously, Angela would be entitled. So do go through it. And like I said, her husband works in construction. So if you cannot find a grant for Angela, she might find a grant on behalf of her husband. I know there's a construction grant, but what you would do is you enter her husband. So you do a separate search on behalf of her husband. And if her children were ill, you do a separate search on behalf of her children, but you put in the children's details. You don't put in Angela's details and then start putting the husband's health condition. It's not going to work. So separate searches for separate people. And down here, you can, this is what you told us. You can obviously change this. You can email these search results out to Angela if she did the search at work and maybe doesn't have a home computer and goes to the library and wants to relook at these grants. You can email this to her. And we also have helpful information down there just as benefits card. So we obviously signpost the benefits calculator if Angela needs financial advice, mental health information, or information about debt. Yeah, so this is it. Or you can copy this into the clipboard. I mean, either way, she can either copy this into the clipboard and at a later date come into the grant search on the home page and put in this reference number. It will bring up the same grant search results, or she can email them to herself. So that's about it.
Fantastic, Christelle. So, and basically a grant, just to explain what a grant is free money, isn't it? You put in your application and then if you are successful, you are awarded that grant. That is your money.
And you don't have to pay it back.
Absolutely. So it's, you know, it's incredibly important that carers will all have a history. They'll all have a family history. They'll have their own history. They'll have had previous jobs. And you picked a very obscure example. When we were talking about prepping this call, I was like, that's a really far out example of this lady. But that profile brought up 37 grants. So there's quite a strong chance that some of those grants are going to be appropriate for Angela, and she can apply for those grants and get that free money to help support her through those challenging times. And I think the key point here is that you can say that, and I explained previously, as a foster carer myself, I did exactly the same thing, and this is why I knew of you several years ago. I did exactly the same thing and went through with my situation to see what I was entitled to, because actually as a foster carer there were lots of different schemes and things that were available to me. So again, we're encouraging care home managers and staff who might be in conversations, having difficult, challenging conversations with their staff members, to say, look, there could be some additional support here. And what we really want to point out is that, you know, through the benefits calculator and through the grant searches, 70% of carers who've gone through this process have increased their monthly income by £568 per month. That's with doing nothing else other than applying for what they're entitled to. Katie.
I wondered if Angela's found a couple of grants, and I can see some of them are really accessible and some of them are kind of more generic, others are more niche. She might want to apply for more than one. How should she go about that, Christelle? Like, how should she prioritise which ones to apply for, and can she apply for multiple grants?
Absolutely. So I received a message from a charity couple of months ago saying, oh, they're suspecting fraud here, because there was this one applicant who had applied to 7 charities, and they'd been successful because they'd met the criteria, right? And they were suspecting fraud because obviously this person had come to them and they'd seen that this person had, because obviously look at your bank statements, they'd seen that this person had received grants. So as many as you can apply for, you know, you meet the criteria, apply for as many as you can. People always say top 3, but I would say obviously as many as you can apply for. If you meet the criteria, apply for it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much. Does anyone have any other questions that they would like to put to Dave or to Christelle? If not, I'm just going to ask Olivia, putting you on the spot really, Olivia, just to ask, I don't know if you're still with us, Olivia? Wonderful, thank you very much. Just really, I know you've used this system yourself with some of your staff as well. Just wonder if you could give us a quick overview and some background on how your staff have found it to be helpful and beneficial.
Yeah, we've I still think we're on a journey. I was just reflecting during the call around having a central lead on this, but absolutely we found it that staff have both used the grant search tool and the benefits calculator to gain support, and more so interestingly on the websites rather than through, there's a helpline that Turn2Us has as well. But I think what people really like being able to do is that idea of almost simulating what you're thinking about doing that week or next week, to start to get a real-time gauge of whether or not you'll be better off, and therefore being able to make those decisions. I also think, and this is really fundamental, is that when we as employers are quite proactive about these conversations, we can start to myth bust, because the other part of our experience has been that employees wait much too long to flag that they've got concerns, and I don't want providers to feel that suddenly they're on the hook and they're responsible for an individual's financial circumstances. But what we can do as employers is be real advocates and support people to be having these conversations early, gaining support and avoiding informal debt, which can be quite a bit more dangerous. I don't know if, Katie, you look like you're smiling and nodding, but yeah, just getting upstream on these conversations so that people seek help really early on.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think there's a huge amount of support on the website, on the Turn2Us website, and we'll make sure all that information is made available and cascaded. But you can have a conversation directly with Turn2Us about having their tool on your websites, on your own intranets, so that you can share them with your staff. But what we'll try to do is produce some kind of posters, some campaign materials and some literature that you can cascade out to your staff to make sure they've got access to this information, and that they can benefit from it. So if we have no more questions, we can end the call. It was just wanted to say a huge thank you to those who have presented today, so Katie, Christelle and Dave. This is fantastic news. It's a really, really important position for us that we make sure that as many care providers get what they're entitled to, be that from grants or be that through benefits. There's 22.7 billion pounds that government are not issuing benefits that people are entitled to, and we want to make sure that our staff are absolutely not struggling. And on those questions between eating and heating is a great example. We want to make sure that they get that extra £568 a month they're entitled to, so that they can get through this winter period and beyond, and not suffer unnecessarily. So
thanks, Richard. Just to jump in there, if you do want any of these tools on your staff pages, just get in touch with the email address I've popped in the chat. So you might want to have the benefits calculator on your if there's a place where staff can go online, like any sort of staff hub or intranet, or somewhere where staff go just to get their shifts. Sometimes it's good to put the links in places where people go anyway. Then please do get in touch. I've put my email in the chat. But thank you, Richard. And thank you so much for having us. I think it's been really useful to get your questions and engagement.
Thank you very much. Well, Christelle, Dave and Katie, thank you so much. Please stay on. We'll let everybody else drop now, and we will wrap up. So thank you all very, very much.